Good evening. Today's Bible study comes from Mark chapter 7, verses 31 through 37. And it reads as follows. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be open. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. Amen. Now, we just finished reading yesterday's Bible study where Jesus healed the Gentiles' child based on their faith. And Jesus was and continues and constantly is working. If you're reading the chapter of Mark chapter 7, you'll see that he is constantly working and doing and teaching. So we start off where Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and Sidon where he was and with the woman, and he went down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk. First of all, you had people that were bringing him somebody. So they must have known and had faith that Jesus could heal. They had seen or heard, witnessed, been told about. The news was spreading of the master's abilities to heal. And his word had to be spreading, because when you spread the word that Jesus can heal, you are spreading the word about Jesus. So what did they do? They brought the man to him. And the man was deaf and he couldn't talk. He could hardly talk. And they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. These people must have had some good faith too, just to know that all he had to do was place his hand on him. All these people seem to always ask Jesus to do a thing that just leads you to think that they understand who he is and the faith that they must have had. Just to lay a hand on this man. That's all, Jesus. Just lay a hand on him. But Jesus was cool, because he said after he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus wasn't going to showboat this situation. Jesus was a very humble and meek person. And after he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. He touched his ears and put his fingers in them. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue, because these were what were afflicted. He looked up to heaven, probably doing as we all should do, giving thanks to the Lord. And with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha. And I'll spell that out for you. It's Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened. Jesus spoke a word, and the physical listened. His tongue was loosened. Another part of the physical is listening. And he began to speak plainly. The man began to speak plainly. But remember the part that says he looked up to heaven. He was given praise when he looked up. Now, Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone. Don't tell anybody about this. I know y'all been talking about it, but the more he did, the more they kept talking about it. See, if, as I stated in yesterday's Bible study, if you're really doing the work of the Lord and people are seeing it and feeling it, you don't have to brag about it. It will go forward and do what it's supposed to do. And people will seek you out because you are honoring the Lord, and they're gaining something from your message, from your actions, from your kindness, from your compassion, from following in the footsteps that we all should follow in. So, even though Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, I'm sure Christ knew that they were going to talk about it. And you would go talk about it too if you got healed. If you couldn't see and if you couldn't speak, and all of a sudden somebody touched you, and bam, you could see and speak, you would go talk about it, even if you were told not to. And I'm sure the Lord knew this. And it says, but the more he did so and telling them not to do it, the more they kept talking about it. So the people were overwhelmed with this amazement. Once again, he had done something nobody else was doing. See, he had given power to his disciples to do some things, but Jesus had been walking around doing these things the whole time. He has done everything well, they said. Look at this. Right here in Mark chapter 7, it says, he has done everything well, they said. Why did we crucify him? Why did we crucify him? For being perfect? Because we couldn't find no fault? And we knew this before the crucifixion, because right here it says he has done everything well. Not some things, but everything well. Man and his ego. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. And you don't think this man was going to go talk about who gave him the ability to hear and the ability to speak? Praise be to our God that controls all things. And once he does for you, as he always has, you should always tell somebody about him. And what he did for this man to make him hear and to make him speak, he is doing the same miracles in our lives to this day. And we need to recognize him and give him the glory. Amen.